South Africa need to do here is win possession from this scrum. Get the ball off the field. Clock's in the red. De Klerk has it at the back. Power comes up from the All Blacks. Ball still on the field. New Zealand looking for the steal here, right at the end of this test match.
Let's go! Let's go!
I need all the wins, yeah. Ain't no L's, I gotta get a no call and quits, yeah. Gotta keep on moving no matter how hard.
Here comes Danny Tusi-Zala, back to Baker, Baker with the fin. Kurt Baker in for DC, and this may well do it Old Glory with the try. The New Zealand Sevens legend, Kurt Baker with the cherry on top.
Can you believe it?
Welcome back to the Online Rugby Podcast, a show brought to you by the Believe Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Nagaishi, and welcome back. You know, wow, I don't think that there was enough proverbial hair pulling or graying that could have happened in one match than this World Cup final. It was insane to have, basically no tries scored, basically a battle of the boots. And, when it really came down to it, it mattered, whether it was the Richie Mo'unga miss, whether it was the Jordie Barrett miss, all those points could have put the All Blacks ahead. Thankfully, it didn't. Up the block, Rossi, all the boys, they are probably in that conversation now with those back-to-back wins as the best team of all time, up there with the 2011-2015 All Blacks, Wayne Smith and the boys. This is insane. I think the journey there to have only won by 1 point in very close titles and showing your quality in the end has meant a lot to this team. And I think moving forward, that's going to be the narrative moving forward throughout the World Cup history. I think it's going to be a big narrative going into the next 4 years, given that how much they're going to have to rebuild and evolve their team with the loss of their players, All Blacks as well. But we'll talk about that later. Let's just go into some of the things that I really gleaned from this match. Pieter-Steph du Toit, you are the man. I swear, every single hit I saw was with the same energy, that thump that was brought to 36,000 tackles is what Alex Corbacero said in the full-time analysis. Wow, he was everywhere. It was almost like for my NFL fans, Sam Darnold seeing ghosts on the field. I was very impressed with his level of performance, to play the whole 80 minutes and still being able to run. He had almost a clean line break off of Handré Pollard to go to the try zone to finish it off. Up the boys, up Pieter-Steph du Toit. The former World Player of the Year showed his quality again. And I definitely think he probably should have been in that World Player of the Year conversation with Eben Etzebeth and Ardie Savio. But regardless of who wins that, both of those players are great. Pieter-Steph du Toit is great, and I hope he continues to show that as a leader for this team moving forward. Deon Fourie, I am so sorry. I have never heard who the hell you are. You came up and you showed out like a Stain brother in this competition. Every time you were on the field, whether it was a big hit, calling the defense as if you're Quagga Smith, giving more mobility into the scrum and line-out plays. I would love to see you more again. I realize that you're a little old and you probably will hang up the boots after this or the next couple years. But wow, I should have really paid attention to you a lot longer. Everything, whether it was leadership, for a bench player to come up that early in the first 5 to 10 minutes for Bongi Mbonambi's injury and show up like that is relatively insane. He deserves to be up there with Pieter-Steph du Toit as my man in the match conversation, and definitely especially in the playoffs, as that impact player for the team. I think a lot of impressionable utility players should watch his film from this World Cup. It will change how a lot of you guys play moving forward. As for the All Blacks, hats off to them to play with 14 men and stop the Springboks at every turn and bring almost equivalent levels of physicality to the play was great. Jordie Barrett, you should have been my MVP if your kick went through and the All Blacks won. Because wow, whether it was on defense, laying the tone with hits, calling the defense, setting up Artisavia for what should have been, if not for Damian Willemsa's very clean end zone grab. Man, I really thought that should have been a try for the All Blacks. Or even the downhill rushing attack, his ability to draw in defenders, set open lanes for Shannon Frizzell, for Artisavia, for Rico Ioane was insane. I think he impacted on all facets, especially in his ability on the high ball. He will also be a linchpin for the All Blacks' new leadership under Razor moving forward. I don't understand how people also said that this game was boring. A lot of people I saw on Twitter were comparing this, at least in the Americas, to the 2018 Super Bowl with the Patriots versus the Rams, where it was basically just field goal after field goal. Yes, I guess if you look at it like that, holistically it was, but in reality, it was much more different. Whereas that game was, I think, more of a schematic battle. I think this game was one more along the lines of the trenches of heart, just because both teams brought exceptional physicality, and they were just an immovable object met another immovable object versus a really shut down offense met a very immovable object. It was a lot more different in that regard, and I definitely think that fans need to realize that a defensive battle in rugby is going to happen more often than not. Maybe not in the modern space for 90% of games, but when it comes down to tight test matches, I think that should always be the standard. And the way both teams played is really the exemplary quote, I think, moving forward for most teams when it comes down to how you finish a game. There were plenty of things good on the officiating side this game. I thought the officiating crew did a relatively good job, better than most in this World Cup cycle. I've shared it ad nauseum about how I've thought about how the officiating performance has been. I do have to say, though, that a couple of the cards I thought were a little should have been I'm not going to say reversed, but one should have not been called and another one should have been upgraded. In terms of the not called, I think there is two penalties. One that became a yellow card on Cheslin Kolbe that I think need to be discussed moving forward. If you look at the replay at about the 47th minute when the kick to Jordy Barrett had happened, both of them go up for the high ball. Jordy kind of almost slouches. Richie Mo'unga goes up instead. Cheslin Kolbe goes up, and Richie Mo'unga knocks the ball on. But if you look at the replay, the call was a knock on by Kolbe at penalty. But if you look at it, it was mostly off of Mo'unga. Kolbe actually didn't impede the catch at all, and it went down. So it should have been play on ball for both teams, I think, in that regard. In terms of the Kolbe yellow card late that really shut him out, I don't even think he looked up the last, 10 minutes that it was happening because of that, because that's a big play to knock out your team. I don't blame you, dude, but you did nothing wrong. The fact of the matter is, it was played very well. I think they could see that he was going to have his arms up and either prepare for a block or the tackle, and he finished off with the tackle. And they just kind of threw it up in there. I'm not sure if that was the actual thought going through their mind, but I mean, that's worth a contentionary thought. I don't think it was cynical at all. I think if anything, it should have been just a penalty, enough said, but, thankfully it didn't impact the game all too much. It could have had a drastic impact though. And I will say it once, I'll say it again. A ref should not determine the outcome of a match. It should be down to the players, period. But being that as it may, I think it was probably the peak of World Rugby for the year for me, and probably likewise for many fans out there. I think the production value of this World Cup has been insane. Yes, it did not have the 3D cam that, say, 2019 had, but wow, I think from the fan engrossment standpoint with all the shows on Rugby Pass Plus, through the fantasy app and the engrossment of fantasy that I'm sure will be, brought on World Rugby as a platform moving forward. The fact that Augustin Pichot finally got his rightful call as, to grow fan engrossment, you have to have better social media. You have to have more fan engrossment, and you have to have a video game. We have yet to see the video game. Hopefully Rugby 24 is popping. It comes out, I believe, next month, but cross my fingers on that. The best of rugby production-wise is yet to come. And it's a great time in the 200th year anniversary of Webb Ellis picking up a soccer ball and making things happen to create the sport and have it end the way that it did is amazing. I, for one, am proud to have known that over the last, 6-7 years, that I got to watch probably some of the better games of all time. And it's a great time to watch. I hope you guys can get into it. For those of you who are new, it's a great sport and will only get better moving forward, especially in the domestic comps. A lot of these things will carry over from the World Cup, as with most things, with the bigger comps, whether it's the Super Bowl, the Olympics, World Cup of Soccer, everything will carry over down to the provincial comps, and I think it will all benefit for that. Yeah, that's really a lot of big things to take over. But get this. The team of the Derby, though, I think has drastically changed. I had to switch out a lot of the boys that I thought should have been in there. So let's go over some. I think we need to go over my categories first as to how I really threw in a lot of the boys on the bench and just on the team in general. I think for me, the one thing was, did they meet the eye test? And in terms of, did they pop off the screen? Did they have a huge impact on and off the ball? Did they bring out on every hit? Did they impact the game in certain ways, whether it was a cross kick, changing of a scheme, etc.? And how does they enforce their will, I guess, would be one. We'll start from my honorable mentions. Beka Gigashvili from Georgia, probably one of the best props, not only in fantasy-wise throughout this comp, but in general. The Georgians, as I've always said, is one of the best set-piece teams in the world. I do think they belong in the nation's championship, but unfortunately, they have not been selected yet. And I think that needs to be rectified because the Georgians can play, especially in that wide open play. They're trying it. It's getting better, and that also needs to be overstated well more than often than not. Rodrigo Marta, I've talked about you once. I will sing your praises again. The man from Portugal with the swag has to be up there in world conversations. He moves, whether it's flanker he's played at 12, he's played on the wing. This dude and his speed can burn you, and his ability to call plays and set himself up off the ball for success is something that I can't overlook. He blew out the US's hopes and dreams, and wow, hats off to you, hats off to Portugal. They definitely earned a spot here. Jordy Barrett as well, we've already talked about you in the World Cup final, but in general, outstanding. Johnny Sexton, just for your career in general and your leadership throughout the World Cup, deserve this spot on this list. Cam Roigard, probably one of my breakthrough players of this World Cup. Wow, I really didn't think he would have done this much of an impact, especially watching his Hurricanes career. Just to move up to the international level obviously is a big step. But wow, did he prove me wrong. He balled out on an effortless level. He will probably be the future at 9 for this all-black team, and it'll be fun to watch the Nations Championship and the Rugby Championship moving forward with him. Courtney Law is another one who called on his career. A great play in the semifinal. I really didn't think that the loss of bulk that you had coming in, I didn't really watch a lot of England the last couple years, but wow, it really helped a lot. His lankiness, his ability to just use his 6'7" height, blocking kicks, stopping passes, hitting people really showed out. Owen Farrell, without him, probably England would be lost right now in this World Cup. He showed out as well. Just with game management alone. I'm not really a big fan of captain's shoulder charge for many of you who don't know, but I think he really showed up and showed out his world quality. Dan Bigger, another one calling it quits on his career. He was my dog of the tournament, willing a lot of the games, with Rollins and with Jack Morgan, who is also on this honorable mention list, spoiler alert, to move Wales forward. It has been probably one of my favorite narratives of this entire comp. Bigger will be missed. I think his impact to not only me watching as a fan, but to Wales moving forward cannot be overstated. Freddie Stewart, his ability, he probably should have made this list at 15 if I didn't just choose a standard back three, but Freddie Stewart and his ability off the high ball and game management saved England, in my opinion, in the semifinal and kept them in contention because his management stopped South Africans kicking it. His ability to distribute the ball and then use his massive boot to manage the game and manage space proved to be probably, if they hadn't adjusted, the Springboks' demise that entire game. And I think for me, if he had moved on to the final, would have been a filthy prospect to face against the All Blacks. In terms of my starting 23, we'll move with the bench first and then move to the starting 15. Okay, so as for the 16 spot, I went with a 5-3 split. I went Tomas Gallo Gallo, excuse me if I butchered the name, from the Argentina Los Pumas. You know, whether it's defense or it's scrumming, he imposed his will. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen from the South African front row. Los Pumas front row. His running mate, Julian Montoya, deserved to be in there as well. He is my 17th pick for the same reason. Nicolas Martins from Portugal as well, the lock from a tier 2 nation to show up the way he did. Damn, did he need to be in here? Like I said, Portugal have a long way to go, but they could be a filthy prospect in the next couple of years. They could be the Chile or Uruguay of Europe, I think, with Romania. For 1920, I think it was a little bit more of a hot take, but I did put Artie Savia in there. You'll see why. Artie Savia, I think, deserved to be there. Whether it's off the ball, on the ball, leadership, hitting, physicality, running with the ball, the man's a legend. And I think he'll go down as one of the better flankers in World Rugby history. Juan Martin Gonzalez from Los Pumas. Wow. I mean, that guy, I think I wasn't expecting him to show up the way he did, but Los Pumas brought it, and I think he was a big reason why they advanced so far this year. He'll be a linchpin for them moving forward. I think physicality was the biggest thing for me, but his ability to finish, whether it's tackling, whether it's running, trying to score, setting up someone else, he's that dude. And I definitely think we need to watch him moving forward. I think he could be another breakout player for this year. Jesse Creel, from his ability throughout most of the finals. In fantasy, he was kind of a flop. But if you watch whenever he's on the field, whether it was the summer pretests or most of the games that he played, he showed up and showed out. He brought that rather than what he was in 2019, where he was more of a downhill threat. He brought that game manager effect and that playmaking role that I didn't think he could do. And I think his last 2 games in the semifinal and in the final were 2 of his best games of his career, just because of the fact of his ability to just be selfless. Whether it was kicking that grub between 3 guys' legs to set up Cheslin Kolbe, or, helping the defense out more on a supportive role. He's evolved so much as a player, and I couldn't leave him out. Handré Pollard is my 22. Man, when he was on the field, the Springboks looked different, and his kicks saved, really, this team from getting kicked out a long time ago. I think it was clutch to bring him back. I'm not sure if he was fully healthy. Hopefully he was. But damn, if he was injured, did he play? And I think that's going to be a big narrative moving forward for the Springboks in terms of being their spot in history. Mark Talea, my breakout player, unquestionable in that conversation for the year. Wow, man. I loved watching him on the Blues. I think his ability off the high ball cannot be overstated. But I think it's his downhill ability. I think he had, I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure he had the most clean breaks and tackles broken in this World Cup, and rightfully so. He's powerful. He's elusive. He can fend. He can juke. He can spin. What more is there to want? You know, I think Martelli is going to be that guy for the All Blacks that can not only kind of take that Caleb Clark role on getting the high ball and running with it, but also on defense. You know, he may not be, say, quote unquote, a Rico Ioane in that regard, but man, I mean, he brings it. And I think he needs to be in that All Black lineup moving forward. I think Caleb Clark's time is over in that spot. You know, they lose Lysa Faranganuku. Yes, big loss, but wow, do they have stars at that spot. As for my starting 15, I kind of went with a very standard pack, so you guys will kind of see what it looks like. Ox Niche, wow, man. The big boy has probably become the best scrummager on planet Earth, eclipsing Steven Kitsoff and Franz Malherbe. Because, wow, Leka, my boy, you are nice. Whether it was scrumming, his ability to just take the ball. I mean, I swear, every time they were feeding him the ball, it wasn't Trevor Inyakanye who was making these big plays, bowling over 3 guys, carrying them an extra couple yards. It was Ox, and he'll be a fixture once Franz and Steven leave. It'll be sad to watch them go, but I know they'll be in great hands with the Ox in the lineup. I also went with Piato Malvaca from France in my number 2 spot. Yes, he wasn't, I would say, the set piece monster that I thought he would be, but on the ball, this dude was a freak. He made every tackle. He ran down scores. He was a career finisher for the French, and I think between him and Damien Penaud, who is also on this list, spoiler alert, those were the stars for the French team this year. For my other prop, it was a toss between Gashvili and this guy, but I think I had to give it to him. Ikale Tahi, man, Masi, my boy, Ben Tamai Funa. Wow, you know, for him to go from a former All Black to playing in France, to then coming back for his native land, balling out the way he did, even despite losing a little bit of mass, I'll give him some credit where credit's due, because, man, did he get way more athletic than every highlight I've ever watched of him growing up. This was insane. I'm very impressed with how he plays. It was nice to see, you know, an Islander player make my starting list and the ball out the way he did at his age, no less, on the world stage. Your probable world player of the year, Eamon Etzebeth, is up there. Need I say more? Guy was insane. For my number 5, I went with a different pick. I went Amato Fakatava. You know, I think he's been one of the huge parts of where Japan had leveled up this year, you know, leading on the back of Michael Leitch and Fakatava and a little bit of Keita Inagaki. You know, the old boys are having their run, but this guy could be the future of the Japanese jersey, and it's so nice to see. You know, I definitely think that his try against, I believe it was Samoa, was probably one of my favorite tries to finish in the World Cup. And I hope to see the Brave Blossoms do well, whether with Eddie Jones or not. Breaking news, he did retire, like I said, but, you know, we'll see. For 6, 7, and 8, spoiler alert, it is green and gold, baby, up the box, because I had to put Quagga Smith, Peter Dutoit, and Dion Fori for their reasons in here. We've already talked about Dion and Peter, so I'll save that for you to watch again. But for Quagga Smith, he is the future of that jersey. With Dwayne Vermeulen retiring, his ability to call the defense and play big. You know, he may be small in stature. He may get bummed off a couple times, but he plays like a big boy. Up to him. He may not be the fastest. He may not be the strongest, but he definitely plays with that dog in him. He deserves to be on this list. Call defense for the South Africans all you want, because he's that Luke Kuechly on that defensive side, on the other side of the ruck, ready to make a play. 9 and 10, I think, was a huge, huge thing for me. I really didn't know who to put at 10, which is why I had so many in my honorable mentions. I probably had to put Dan Bigger up there. I know he's in my honorable mentions, but I'm still in that gray area. To me, I think there's a lot of 10s that really deserve this spot. But as of right now, maybe we can cross Dan Bigger out and put him up there. As for 9, I think that was the easiest one for me of the two. Kobus Radanok, for me, had earned that spot. Every time he was in at 9 for the Bok, the team looked well energized. He provided a lot more off the ball than I thought. His ability to call the offense, distribute the ball out was very well improved from 2019. Everyone knows about his running ability. I think that hasn't yet to be overstated, but his defensive ability was Faf de Klerk level, and outside of Faf de Klerk's experience and really just animalistic mentality, I think he'll be a great future for the Bok in that regard. For my back, actually, we'll save the back three for last. Let's go for centers. 12, Colin, a great career. Bundy Aki, it's sad I couldn't see you in a final, but you really proved in your age that old dogs can be taught new tricks, because you were elusive, you were powerful, you were a game manager, and you can manage the space very well. You are not just a downhill threat that everyone calls you. You deserved an all-black cap, but, things as it may, you're an Irish legend now. Up to you. Great career. George North as well. I'm sure he'll be right after the sunset very soon. But George North, every time I watched Wales, it was either George North, Jack Morgan, or Dan Bigger, or Will Rowlands making plays. And well to be said, up the boys in that regard in Wales. You guys have a great future ahead of you. Hopefully Gats can get a couple good players off of recruitment and get you guys back on track. No, I think the world hates to see when Wales struggles in that regard. As for the back three, very controversial. I'm not running this off of positions. I think it's just going to be a standard utility back three. Damian Peña needed to be there, as I've said earlier, just because every time he touched the ball or was around the ball, magic happened, whether it was setting up a try, finishing one himself, hitting people, managing space very well. He did everything very well. He was the form wing, I think, for this World Cup. And it was sad to see the French team with him and Antoine Dupont, who had come back from an injury, leave in that fashion against the Bok. Kurtley Arnsa, man, everyone knows he's like the Will Jordan of South Africa, but I think his defensive ability needs to be talked about more. His ability to not only take the high ball, he replaced Mapimpi, who I really didn't think could be done, and played effectively well despite his criticism, and improved as a player throughout this entire World Cup. He has grown as a person, I think, and learned it's really just not being on the ball that where it matters. It's off the ball where it truly wins games, and he'll be a fixture of the Bok moving forward. I had to put Will Jordan in there at my 15 spot. Every time, same thing with Kurtley Arnsa touches the ball, he gets magic, whether it's distributing, whether it's tackling. He really proved a big part in turnover game on defense. Very impressed to see that. Haven't really seen it in the international stage outside of his Crusaders play, and his defense has been outstanding. Up the boys. That's my team of the tournament. I'm sure a lot of these guys will be there again next year. Hopefully we'll have some Australians for that Lions test next year, but we'll see about that. As for Australia, breaking news, Eddie Jones has officially resigned, quote unquote retired, but from the Wallabies, and I think his journey has come controversially to an end. A lot of people have said it would be just his record or the way the team was treated. I really think it was the media. I think it is very understated what Australian media has done to a lot of the coaches and mental health. And I definitely think that Eddie Jones took it the worst. I've said it before, Rugby Australia is a mess. I think it probably will always be, unless it's fixed at the ground levels, and that'll take decades to do. I'm not sure who will replace him as the coach. Perhaps they'll go with my prediction and move in, a guy from the Brumbies into that spot, or maybe they'll go international. I have no idea. But for all my Wallaby fans, for all my Australians, I just don't know where the future of your team holds. Perhaps the next coming weeks will be where we know better where this team lies in terms of either floundering or sinking or riding the ship right. Eddie Jones, I don't see he'll probably retire. I think he'll pull a Tom Brady, really rethink it, maybe take a couple months off and go to Japan and replace Jamie Joseph. He'd be great there. The Japanese people love him. He has heritage. Obviously, everyone knows him for the Brighton Miracle, but I think it's a perfect spot for him just in terms of where he could go and succeed. Obviously, the Japanese will roll out a massive check for him, so I'm sure if they haven't already, they'll start calling him in the next couple of weeks. It's a very interesting time for Rugby Australia, and my hat's off to you guys. Hopefully it gets better. As for the future of our finals contenders, I think both have a lot to look in the mirror in terms of where they need to evolve as players and as coaching staff, but also in terms of where they have to evolve through lineup and scheme. South Africa loses probably Dion Footy, given how old he is at 39 years of age. They're definitely losing Dwayne Vermeulen, and they're probably losing a lot of their pack. They're probably going to lose Steven Kitsoff, probably going to lose Fansmar Herba, who are all leaving for contracts in the northern parts of Europe, whether it's in Munster with Kitsoff or other places. They're probably going to lose Bongi in the next couple years. He's getting up there in age. A lot of their guys are built on experience and breadth of skills. Eben Etzebeth can't do it forever. Franco Monster, despite how much of a freak he is, can't do it forever either. You can't count on Rugby-Lyman all the time, despite his impact, just because of how old he is. A lot of those boys are getting up there, and I think they need to start reevaluating and start going young really quickly, because if not, this team is going to look a lot much of the same moving into the next World Cup cycle, and a lot of it needs to come from scheme. They need to go more into open play. Obviously, playing the way the Springboks played won them a cup. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying that a lot of teams have figured it out, and a lot of teams are going to definitely come, if they haven't already, as we have seen, with a target on their backs for the Bok, and they're going to need to delve into more of that open play that we saw in the British and Irish Lions tests to really prove to the rest of the world that they are an evolving team that can play on the world stage at different ways. As for the All Blacks, I think everyone knows they lose Aaron Smith, they lose Sam Whitelock, they lose Brodie Retallick, probably Joe Moody. They're definitely going to lose Richie Mo'unga. They're probably going to lose Bowden Barrett. So that means that David McKenzie's going to slot in. A lot of that team is built young, so I do not see much of an issue in that regard, as well as the Springboks, given the fact that they play so open as it is. They don't really need to model much. They have probably the best athletes in the world and the best academies in the world, the islands. But I think they're going to have to take a long look at the mirror. I think Razor will probably mold them into a mixture of what the Crusaders look like and the mixture of what the Chiefs was like. I think that's the best of both worlds for what that team could be, just because of the physicality of the Chiefs and their ability to play on defense with cover versus what the Crusaders do offensively. I think that could make an issue, as well as their discipline. Razor will be an upgraded coach. Again, we do not know who the Springbok new head coach is, with Jacques Nienaber leaving for Munster to join Steven Kitsoff and the boys. But I think we can take a little bit of a look as to where that team will be. You have your Alex Sandersons of the world who coach for the Sale Sharks. You have your Robert Duprias, who formerly coached for the Sharks. I'm not sure really what he does now. Maybe he went back to the South Sea Sharks in the URC. I'll have to look into that. Or John Dobson, the coach of the Stormers, I think would be my three hot picks for that team. You maybe throw the Bulls head coach in there, maybe. I just don't know. But I think that the pick should go to Sanderson. I've already talked about Dobson before. I think he needs to learn his ability to close out games would be a huge dub for everyone. Yes, the Stormers are a freak. Yes, I am a fan of them, but I would like to see Dobson stay. But he he needs to improve as a more well-rounded coach in that regard. I think Sanderson, despite not winning a lot in the Champions Cup and failing to win the Premiership, has a lot of relationships. I think that's going to be huge, at least internally with chemistry with a lot of these blocks, because a lot of them have either played in the Premiership against him or with him, either at Saracens or at Sale. And the scheme they run there is very expansive, and it still has that South African flair and physicality. So it would be very plug and play. And I think he has the international connections with the staff to make that happen. Robert Dupria would be nice, but I don't know. The dude is old, so maybe not. Pipe dream, I would say, of the three, but yeah, I definitely think Sanderson deserves it. As for MLR news, the rich just keep getting richer. Tommaso Boni, former Italian cap center, now USA cap center, signs with Old Glory. You have Ryan James, former Guiltini wing, signing with the Legion, as well as Darcy Breen up to Taz. Unfortunately, he leaves them to join the Legion as well. They're preparing for a very explosive future, and I don't know, man. The Legion could, I hate to say it, but they could be up there. Ugh, I hate cheering for them. But, can't give credit where credit's due. Their GM is doing a damn good job. That team is still explosive. When they do it right, they do it great, and definitely need to be up there in terms of MLR legends of all time. I think Ma'anonu would definitely probably enter that coach role this year, and for the better, and that team will be amazing coming this Super Rugby season. Hopefully not better than the Sabercats, but we'll see. As for Ryan James, I'm not sure what this sells. I just don't know if it means the end of Super Rugby Americas. There hasn't been an official disbanding of the comp, but given how much players are fire sailing from that comp, that might be an indicator that things aren't going so well. Could we see, say, a Super Rugby Americas team jump in, or all of them? I would love to see the Chileans, the Uruguay teams, and definitely the Argentinian teams come in. That would be nice. Make it a little bit of an America's comp. Add a couple teams in Canada. That would be sick. Not just Toronto. Maybe throw in a British Columbia team, maybe a Montreal team. That'd be sick. Who knows? Maybe even a Calgary team. That'd be pretty cool too. They're good in hockey. Let's say that they can't play rugby. But I think that could be the future. I would love that to be the future, and I would love that to be not on Flow or on some bootleg app. But, that's for another day to discuss. Super Rugby Americas would be a nice pivot towards the M from the MLR in terms of branding. It brings in more brand recognition. It adds more teams, obviously, bigger budget. They definitely have more of a marketing pitch behind them. You could transfer a lot of the things. I think it's for the better. We shall see what happens moving forward. As for teams that could join the MLR regardless, I definitely see, I've heard rumors, unconfirmed though, that the Mexican U23 team is trying to lobby to have an academy and maybe an MLR team built in Mexico. That would be very sick. I will try to get some more confirmation from them moving forward. But if that does happen, make it international. I would love to see teams travel in Mexico City and play in Estadio Azteca or, TJ. That'd be a great rival for San Diego. Who knows? The options are endless out there, but that's going to do it for me this week. Probably the longest episode I've ever done. Let's see if we can top that record next week. We'll see what happens. Great World Cup cycle. Thank you again for staying and joining in. See you later.